Hello and most welcome to the lecture 1934 of the H series. We will today continue with Gilles Deleuze essays, critical and clinical. Last time, lecture 1931, we took a closer look at vortex chirality and how the spine is a spiral. Mentioned by Lawrence and then taken up by Gilles Deleuze. And I say, this is so interesting. The vortex and the chirality is a very important part in our constitution. And a huge oversimplification, one could say that chirality or the spiral replaces some sort of idea that we have a corporal body consisting of atoms or any such very prevalent ideas today. Well, possibly the only one. No, we are rather spirals. In quantum mechanics, every person is a wave function. We also took a good look at gander, as one usually says. We took a gander at white, which also contains red and any colors of the spectra. Interesting how one thing covers all. And this is one of those very important oppositions that are so limiting for thinking, for human beings, I would say even. And that's the limitation of thinking in one and several, and thinking that several are made up of singularities. In physics, in reality, in all strands of thinking, singularity comes from plurality. The universe is a wholeness, not fragmented parts. The fragmented parts idea is the default picture, the one we all have when we come into any sort of thinking. This is the default we have. And this is why it's so important to approach this. The classical thinking influences widely the understanding of revelation. Failing to take that in regard creates a completely different Bible. With few, if any, similarities with how, as a wholeness, it's supposed to be read. We also took up transformation of woman. She only returns in the inverted form of the whore of Babylon, still splendid, seated on the red dragon, promising destruction. Destruction. Indeed.
Destruction.
Destruction.
Good media. And now I will continue on paragraph 5, the transformation of the twins. The pagan world was not only made up of living conjunctions. It also included borders, thresholds, and doors. Disjunctions, so that something passes between two things, or a substance passes from one state to another, or alternates with another while avoiding dangerous mixes. The twins have precisely this role as disjunctors, masters of wind and rain, because they open the doors of heaven, sons of thunder, because they part the clouds, guardians of sexuality, because they maintain the opening in which birth insinuates itself and make blood and water alternate, while outlining the moral point in which everything would be mixed without measure. Measure!
Measure,
Measure! Measure!
measure.
The twins are thus the masters of flow, flows. Their passage, their alternation, and their disjunction. Disjunction! This is why the apocalypse need to have them killed and rise to heaven, not for the pagan world to reach its periodic excess, but for its measure to come from elsewhere, like a death sentence.
Yeah.
Yuck, you could say, and enforcing. Six, the transformation of symbols into metaphors and allegories. The symbol is a concrete cosmic force, puissance. Popular consciousness, even in the apocalypse, retains a certain sense of the symbol while adoring brute power, pouvoir,
Pouvoir, pouvoir,
pouvoir.
pouvoir.
And yet, what differences there are between a cosmic force and the idea of an ultimate power. Power! Power! One by one, Lawrence sketches out certain characteristic features of the symbol. It is a dynamic process that enlarges, deepens, and expands sensible consciousness. It is an ever increasing becoming conscious, as opposed to the cloning of the moral consciousness upon a fixed allegorical idea. It is a method of the affect, intensive affect, intensive, uh, cumulative intensity, which merely marks the threshold of sensation. Sensation. The awakening of a state of consciousness. The symbol means nothing and has neither to be explained nor interpreted, as opposed to the intellectual consciousness of allegory. It is a rotative thought in which a group of images turn ever more quickly around a mysterious point, as opposed to the linear allegorical chain. Consider the Sphinx riddle. What is it that goes first on four legs, then on two, and then on three? It would be rather foolish to see this as three linked parts whose final response would be man.
Man.
Man. It comes to life. On the contrary, only if one feels the three groups of images in the process of whirling around the most mysterious point of man. images of the animal child, then those of the creature on two paws, a monkey, bird, or frog.
Frog.
Frog. And then those of the unknown beast of three paws from beyond the seas and deserts. This is precisely what a rotative symbol is. It has neither beginning nor end. It does not lead us anywhere. And above all, it has no final point. Not even stages. Stages! It is always in the middle, au milieu,
Au
in
milieu.
the midst of things, between things.
Between things.
Between things. 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 It has only a milieu, milieus that are ever more profound. The symbol is a maelstrom. It makes us whirl about until it produces that intense state out of which the solution, the decision, emerges. Emerges.
Emerges.
The symbol is a process of action and decision. In this sense, it is linked to the oracle that furnished it with these whirling images.
Images whirling.
For this is how we make a true decision. We turn into ourselves, upon ourselves, even more rapidly until a center is formed and we know what to do.
To go.
Just the opposite occurs in allegorical thought, which is no longer active thought, but a thought that ceaselessly postpones or defers. It replaces the force, puissance, of decision with the power of judgment.
Judgment.
Pouvoir,
Wow.
pouvoir.
Judgment. Ouch.
Furthermore, it wants a final point as the last judgment. Judgment. Sorry. And it places these provisional points between each sentence, between each segment, as so many stages in a path preparing for the second coming.
Second coming. Where are you? Second coming.
No doubt it is the sense of sight, books, and reading that have given us this taste for points, segmentary lines, beginnings, ends, and stages.
This taste. Yummy, 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 yummy.
The eye is the sense organ that separates us. Allegory is visual, whereas the symbol evokes and unites all the other senses. When the book was still screwed, it perhaps retained its power as a symbol. But how precisely can we explain the strange fact that the Book of the Seven Seals is supposed to be a scroll, and yet that the seals are broken successively in stages apart from the fact that the apocalypse need to put points everywhere to install segments everywhere. The symbol is made up of physical connections and disjunctions. And even when we find ourselves before a disjunction, something nonetheless happens. in the interval a substance or flow. For the symbol is the thought of flows in contrast to the intellectual and linear process of allegorical thought. The modern mind apprehends parts, bribes, and pieces, and puts a point after each sentence where the sensible consciousness apprehends the whole as a flow or flux. Oh, excuse me.
Prosit.
Tack så mycket.
Prosit.
Tack så mycket. Thank you. Well done. The apocalypse reveals its own aim to disconnect us from the world and from ourselves. Ourselves. Ourselves.
Ourselves.
Ourselves.
Ourselves.
Oh dear. Exeunt the pagan world. The pagan world. The apocalypse made it rise again for one last time in order to destroy it forever. We must therefore return to the other axis, no longer the opposition between the apocalypse and the pagan world, but the completely different opposition between the apocalypse and Christ as a person.
Oj, 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 oj. Opposition between the
As
apocalypse
a
and
person.
Christ. Person.
Christ had invented a religion of love, that is
Love.
an love. That is an aristocratic culture of the individual part of the soul. The apocalypse invents a religion of power, that is a terrible popular cult of the collective part of the soul. Of the soul. The apocalypse turns Christ into a collective ego. It gives him a collective soul. And then everything changes. 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 The vitality of love is transmuted into an enterprise of revenge.
French.
And the evangelical Christ is transmuted into the apocalyptic Christ, the man with a sword between his teeth.
Teeth.
Hence, the importance of Lawrence's admission.
Admonition.
The John who wrote the Gospel is not the same John who wrote the Apocalypse. The Apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
And yet, perhaps, they are more united than if they were the same. And the two Christs are more united than if they were the same. Two sides of the same medal.
Two sides of the same medal.
To explain this complementarity.
Complementarity.
Complementarity. It is enough to say that Christ had personally neglected the collective soul, thereby leaving it a wide open field.
Wide open.
Or is there indeed a more profound, a more abominable reason? Abominable reason, oh no!
Abominable.
Lawrence here throws himself into a complex affair. It seems to him that the reason for the deviation, for the disfiguration, was not simple negligence, but instead has to be sought in Christ's love, in the manner of which he loved. He loved. For this is what was already horrible. The manner in which Christ loved. This is what would permit a religion of power to be substituted for the religion of love.
Lol.
Love. In Christ's love, there was a kind of abstract identification, or worse, an ardor to give without taking anything.
An ardor to give without taking anything.
Christ did not want to meet his disciples' expectations, and yet he did not want to keep anything, not even the unviolable, unviolable part of himself. Sorry. Inviolable part of himself. There was something suicidal about him. Oh dear. About Jesus. Oh God. What do we say? My God. Shortly before his text on the Apocalypse, Lawrence wrote a novel entitled The Man Who Died. He imagines Christ resuscitated, but also nauseated, telling himself never again.
Never again.
Never
Nauseated.
again.
Bleh.
Found by Mary Magdalene, who
Oh,
wants to give up everything for him. He perceives a small glimmer of triumph in the woman's eye, an accent of triumph in her voice, and he recognizes himself in it. Now, this is the same glimmer, the same accent of those who take without giving. There is the same fatality in Christ's ardor and in Christian cupidity, in the religion of love and in the religion of power. I gave more than I took, and that also is woo and vanity. It only means another death. Now he knew that the body rises again to give and to take and to give ungreedily.
Greedy.
Throughout his work, Lawrence tended toward this task to track down and diagnose the small and evil glimmer wherever it may be found, whether in those who take without giving, or in those who give without taking. John of Patmos and Christ.
Ouch, ouch. Without giving, or in those who give without taking. Ouch, 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 ouch. Christ.
This is an excellent stopping point. Christ, 1934. 1934. Christ being the last word. Christ. And it's page, what page is it? 50. Yeah, 50, I think it is. '50, indeed. Let's go look for some quotes. And there indeed was no lack of interesting stuff here, I'd say. Let's see here. Go to page 48, if you could, Colin. And the third line from the top, we have the twins. The twins have, the second line, have precisely this role as disjunctors, masters of wind and rain, because they open the doors of heaven, sons of thunder, because they part the clouds, and so on and so on. The twins, we have two in a vortex. I will come back to that, and we go down to the second paragraph that begins with a 6. It is the method of effect. It's about 10 lines down, just at the bottom here. Intensive accumulative intensity, which merely marks the threshold of a sensation, the awakening of a state of consciousness. Very interesting. The affect is the combination of an intellectual process and the senses. We just mentioned that in the previous lecture, 1933, that there is a perceived or an imagined dichotomy between the senses and the intellectual, or the thinking mechanism, the concept, and something more of affect, of proto-phenomena, if you like. They rather go together, and I like the twins here. They are as completely different as can be. You will see later, which makes them complementary, but later about that. It is also a cumulative intensity, which merely marks the threshold of a sensationing, the awakening of a state of consciousness. The symbol means nothing and has neither to be explained nor interpreted, as opposed to the intellectual consciousness of allegory. And then it's a mentioning that it's a rotative thought. We understand by concepts, but not by, and I reinforce that, putting concepts on things. Exploring or experience something, for instance, I have in front of me a thing and I put a concept on it. No, it is by the concept that we understand. There's nothing of a separation between this and something in my head. They are interwoven. There are no pure, unaltered consciousness that can understand a thing and afterwards put a concept on it. No, concepts are not disjunct from anything, not even from the core of our sensory awareness, maybe the heart. It is also a rotative thought, and I like that. Once more, we bring in the vortex. We bring in the understanding that it is a wave that moves understanding and world together. Nothing separated from one another. It goes together. We do not label the world with concepts. They are not the grid we use to understand the world with. No, they are intertwined. No longer Saussurean idea of sign and signified. He fails to give a connection between the two. And in the penultimate sentence on this page, this is precisely what the rotative symbol is. It has neither beginning nor end. It does not lead us anywhere. And above all, it has no final point, nor even stages. And this is connecting to two different things. There is no finitism, something that we look to in when we looked into mathematics with Startup, the man with the funny surname. Finitism is the idea that there would be an end and a start, the idea of a big bang or a big crunch. No. The second thing, it is constantly doing it things without stages. There are no distinctive steps. Just like time itself do not have disjunct moments that form together to make time, like making up of nanoseconds, milliseconds, seconds, minutes, and hours, and days, and years. No, there are no stages to time. Time is one whole. WHOLE. It is also openness. go to the next page. And I like this, it's no coincidence. The symbol is a maelstrom. How many times have we not mentioned the maelstrom? It makes us whirl about until it produces that intense state out of which the solution, the decision emerges. This is an understanding of the thinking process. It needs contradictions. I think I mentioned an earlier time that when you hand in an essay or a master or anything, people start looking for today for contradictions. Although we know contradictions is what build up something stable. The maelstrom is built up purely by contradicting things. Sameness builds weakness. If you do not use contradictions in your speech, you will not even be understandable. The whole idea of a linear causal thinking is absolutely coming from the black box of the beetle. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There are no hidden law of contradiction that needs to be followed. And this symbol is a process of action and decision. In this sense, it's linked to the oracle that furnished it with these whirling images. Isn't that grand? It whirls, it flows. And here, further down, like 20 lines down, something like 18, 20. Yeah, beginning with no. No doubt, it is the sense of sight, books, and reading that has given us this taste for points, segmentary lines, beginnings, ends, and stages. This is how it began. And we looked into our reading way that gives the idea that there is a certain way to start. There isn't. All things are equal. This is closely connected to the Ozma problem of Ava Gardner. We cannot tell without being present which is up and down, or which is to be the preferred. You need to be shown. It is all about doing, acting, as mentioned before. It is the active ingredient, the force, the puissance that makes judgment possible. If you go further down, we can see a little pointer. The modern mind, the very last here, as you have on the screen, apprehends parts, bribes, and pieces. And puts a point after each sentence, whereas the sensible consciousness apprehends the whole as a flow or flux. Back to the wholeness. There are no disjunct parts. It's all one great wholeness that brings everything together. All inclusive, including the contradictions. Because truly, if you take away the negative side of anything, you reject it. Understanding will be scarce. So back with the maelstrom, thinking as a flow, and the twins who are complementary. And it was really fun to see that complementary entered into the whole thing. I think that was to be found on the next page. But I hand over to my dear colleague Kalle here. Please join.
Thank you, thank you. Let me go to page 48. 48.
48, indeed. Haha.
So he's speaking about number 6 here, transformation of symbols into metaphors and allegories. This title implies that it's possible to distinguish between symbols and metaphors. I don't know. I suppose they are intertwined. But let's say this is correct, and we should symbols in. I could mention this excellent interview with Professor Davis. Let me see. This Professor Davis. Let me see. Ah, yes, he has now published a new book about the Book of Revelation, and this Professor Davis says that that whenever he sees these new book titles, the Bible code cracked. The Bible code cracked. He gets a little bit upset. So Introduction to Revelation with Jamie Davis. He's a little bit upset because if you say that you have cracked the Bible code, it implies that you disregard the images, the metaphors.
Oh yeah.
So you reduce the Book of Revelation to only 2 numbers, so to say, or some
Numbers
code,
and
secret
parts
code,
and rights.
as if
Yeah,
images
yeah.
themselves do not mean anything. But anyhow, I don't. So let me go to next thing here. The last sentence here. Let me see. So about rotative symbol is always in the middle. I'm not sure that I would agree with that. Let me see. We have discussed many times, no, not many times, but a few times Ezekiel's wheel. And a wheel, if you think about a wheel, do we give priority to the center? Hans, no, in a wheel. No, I don't think that we give a priority to the center. A wheel to work, it
Yeah.
has also, I
Circumference,
don't know.
radius, everything.
You need everything. Also, you need also the peripheries.
Oh yeah.
I don't know which painting. I don't know. I don't know if you can see it in Raphael's painting.
No, I get the idea. I get the
No, I
idea.
don't
Now we need both the
Yes, of
outer
course.
and the
So here I think he's no, it's not correct. Rotative symbol. He's very metaphor. Rotative symbol is contradictory. Giving priority to the center, but it's not possible to give priority to the center in a
they're both
wheel.
important for the wheel.
And then
I think about the maelstrom. It's mentioned there, the center of the maelstrom and the outer periphery and the surrounding. For first, you can't say the maelstrom is not of water. The second, you can't say it is water. And there is no inside and outside in the maelstrom that is more important.
Yes, okay. And according to Deleuze, a symbol stands for all senses, while allegory is only about the visual. I think it's a little bit artificial, that distinction. And he also says that allegory is visual and linear. But already there you see a contradiction. Because we know from quantum physics, things that are, you see here, allegory is visual.
Yeah.
that, and then you see here a few lines down, he says that this allegory is linear. Let me see. Linear, let me see, do I see it? Allegory is visual.
Can I come up
Yes.
with something
Yeah,
here?
sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, we'd love for you to enter.
This part is actually being quoted a lot in the digital humanities about
Okay.
the allegory being visual,
Ah.
and they're borrowing it from here, and linear in regard of film, media studies.
Mhm.
So what is the point in field studies?
In the film studies, in regard of allegory,
Yes.
they are just like taking it that allegory must be visual, like in that sense.
Yeah,
Of,
yeah.
I don't think that allegory is always visual.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. It's an idea that allegorical thought is more visual somehow, and that vision. I think that is actually scientifically looked into quite carefully from the beginning of this new millennium. And very seldom visual is connected to the idea of form, length, width, and such things. Visual is closely connected to language rather.
Mhm.
And I can actually disprove him here once again. Let me take Revelation chapter 1. Let me take interlinear. Let me take interlinear. About the 7 lampstands. Let me see. So he's.
There is also a very nice mentioning of complementarity, and this is coming from quantum physics, is invented by quantum physics. And the father of this idea is Niels Bohr himself, of course.
Here you see this verse 12, and I saw. Let me see. No. And I saw the voice that spoke to me. So it's so to say, how can you see a voice? That is one thing, actually, that it breaks the duality. Let me see. And I heard a great voice. Oh, okay. So it's much about also the ear, and I heard behind me a
Yeah,
great voice.
I think an example that makes you understand that is listening to film music, movie music, and watch a movie without the music. The colors are completely different. The shapes are different. They cannot be disjunct, and sound waves are actually the same thing as visual waves. They are present everywhere and simultaneously make up for what we call the world. And it's not really situated in an observer or the observed. It's together. It's interwoven.
Mhm.
Like the maelstrom, actually.
So we could say as concluding remark that so Deleuze, his thoughts about doesn't make much sense. Okay, the thing about complementarity, okay.
Yes, obviously coming from quantum mechanics as well.
Okay, rotative simple, that's fine. Yes, absolutely. But then the middle thing there, and complementarity. He says that he uses these two Christs to attack as an ammunition to attack both Christs.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So he accepts complementarity only when it suits him.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I ask, speaking of complementarity, why cannot we agree on the complementarity of love and vengeance?
yeah.
Or let's say love and justice, or whatever you call it.
Well, I say so as well. Yeah. That could be a nice concluding remark. If everything is complementary, why not use it everywhere? Very good, Kalle. I think we have to
Yes.
close the parcel for today. I'll get back tomorrow. It will be like 12:30, something like that. I
Okay,
imagine.
12:30 tomorrow.
And we continue with dear old Wittgenstein. Thank you very much, Mirja, for participating. It's grand to hear you. And I have a suggestion now, but I mentioned that later. I'll stop the recording now. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. Bye bye for now.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.